Larry Sharpe has traveled the country and has personally visited every county in New York State, listening to people's concerns. The Sharpe Way is a show where answers, solutions, and common ground can be found so that together we can forge a new way forward. The Sharpe Way is the way to mutual respect, where no one has to convert to be heard, because you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want, as long as you aren't forcing your beliefs on others. Welcome to Sharpe Way Radio.
Yes, it is Larry Sharpe here on Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL Rochester, New York. So happy that you're giving me a small chunk of your afternoon. You can call me if you want to. 585-346-3000 is the number. Thank you so much again for giving me a chunk of your afternoon. I was watching some TV last weekend. Larry, you watch TV? Yes, people do watch TV still. Some of us do. I'm one of those people who sometimes watches TV. And I was thinking about the budget. I say, Larry, about the budget? I know I was boring. I was watching news, so I'm boring, but that's what I do. That's why I come and do the show, because I watch news and stuff. And it made me think about something very odd. And that is when I was a kid growing up in the Bronx in the 70s. And I thought about Puerto Ricans. You might say, wait a minute, Larry, this doesn't sound good thinking about Puerto Ricans. I was. Why was I thinking about Puerto Ricans? Because I remember something. I remember as a kid, there were many apartments in the Bronx that had a whole lot of Puerto Rican family members in it. 10 sometimes, 8, 6, all in one apartment. And as a little kid in the Bronx, please take this the right way, I was a little kid, we would tease them. We would say, oh, how many people live in your apartment, blah, 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 blah. We would tease them and kind of call them names. And some of the Puerto Rican kids in my class would feel bad about the teasing. Of course, we were stupid elementary school kids saying stupid things, not understanding what was going on. But it was just different for us. And of course, when you're an elementary school kid and something's different, you tease it because you don't know any better. So you do. And I did. I was as bad as all the other kids. You silly Puerto Rican kids and your families and 25 people in an apartment and blah, 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 blah. And they took it as a negative, as the kids did. But as I look back now, it wasn't a negative at all. In reality, I was the dummy, not them. The Puerto Rican families were brilliant. How do I know that? Because what those Puerto Rican families were doing, again, I'm using Puerto Rican because that's what was happening in my neighborhood at the time. This story is in many different neighborhoods with different ethnic backgrounds. But this is my specific story. Literally, they were allowing family members who were coming from Puerto Rico to live with them so they could get on their feet. And how do I know? Because I was watching that if the people were a bit older, very often you'd see them working, literally out front, fixing cars. Now, that's against the law now, but then it wasn't, or if it was, it wasn't enforced. And you really find 3 or 4 Puerto Rican, usually 2 younger men and 1 older man, usually, it's not always the same, but often was that. And the older man is telling them, do this, do that, do this, in Spanish usually, sometimes English. And they were fixing cars, banging out things, fixing things, back when the car was made of metal, those types of things. And that was basically trade school. That's what it was, to teach them how to do things. When we had problems, they would go out and do plumbing for us and things of that sort, right? We had a super in my basement, who lived in the basement of my big building. But sometimes when he couldn't get stuff done, we would literally call some of the Puerto Ricans in our building and say, hey, can you help fix this, fix that? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, fine. Give them a couple bucks. They would fix things. If you are from the city, New York City, you know that in the summer, very often, the kids would want to play out in the fire hydrants. So often the city would come by and shut the fire hydrants off. And then somebody would come out with a big wrench and open the fire hydrants up and put in the special sprinkler systems. And it was almost always some Puerto Rican man who would come out after the cops left, turn it back on, put his sprinkler back on, and we play the sprinklers. So why am I telling you this? Because what I saw constantly is that group of people, often large Puerto Rican families, were basically creating their own structure as a trade school. I'm not joking. These people were making money doing work like plumbing, like car repair, refrigeration repair, all those things. And people were hiring them in my neighborhood to get it done. That was actually happening. They're making money. And a support structure for immigrants. People were immigrating from Puerto Rico. I mean, it's still America, but they're still coming from another place, coming to New York. Immigrant structure actually fixing this, right? Fixing this problem. People coming. And of course, the youngsters would often go to school, right? The young kids would go to school and then go to college and then get jobs. Many of these people to this day are working in government, working in law firms, working as doctors, nurses, right? Working in medical field. Many of them to this day who came and stayed in a house with 8, 10 people in it. And the funny part is they didn't stay forever. They stayed for 3, 4, 5 years. And then they went off and started their own families and got their own apartments because now they were a plumber or a car repairman or an HVAC repairman or whatever the case may be. Or they went to school and they got a college degree, or now they're a nurse or a doctor or working for the government or something, right? Or they're, civil servants driving buses or something, whatever. They're doing the things that we want them to do. Now, the advantage of being Puerto Rican then and now is you are an American citizen. So when you come here, you are documented, right? So that's an advantage that a Puerto Rican person would have. They come here, they're American, they're documented. Okay, fine. What happens when you're not? Doesn't work as well, does it? But I'll even go one step further. The Puerto Rican families didn't just help Puerto Ricans. They did, obviously. That was people in their families that cared, absolutely. But they would also help others. As I said, cheap plumbing repair, car repair, those types of things. They would just do it. Cheaper price right there. Don't take your car anyplace. The guy literally comes to your front of your building, fixes your car in the street. I'm not joking. Fix your car in the street. Give him a couple bucks. Done. But also childcare. When I was a kid, when I came home from school, I walked to school and walked back. And when I came, this is in the Bronx in the 70s, I'd come back and I went to a house. I forgot the woman's name. But I went to her house and she was Puerto Rican, and we go to her house and that was my babysitter. And there were many kids there. It wasn't just me. There was tons of kids there. She was basically a daycare center, right? Obviously not authorized, but nobody seemed to care. We knew her. She knew us. She lived in our building. So they even provided daycare for us. So my mom could go to work. All of those things are being produced and supported by a community. You might go, Larry, okay, I got you. You tell me one of your stories about when you were a kid again. Yeah, I do it often. Because you look now and what do we see? Every single one of those solutions now to a problem is somehow supposed to be solved by government. Yet it keeps failing. How do we know this? Because the budget keeps going up and up and up, but we keep complaining on how things aren't getting better. They're just getting worse. We're all complaining. Oh, there's nothing this. We don't have this. We don't have that. We don't have the other thing. But the budget keeps going up. And I said, well, Larry, we'll just make magic money. It's fine. We'll just keep printing money. Okay, if you believe in magic monetary theory, the magic money tree at the national level, I guess that's fine because you believe that. I hope you're right. I don't think you are, but that's fine. But what about a state level, a city level? You can't make money at the state. You can't make money at the city. And in New York State, our budget keeps going up. $220 billion. New York City alone, $103 billion. New York City's budget is larger than almost all the other states. There's only I think 8 states have a bigger, maybe less than that, have a bigger budget than New York State. I'm sorry, New York City. New York City. Only one state has a bigger budget, that's California, as a state. Only one. And per person, no state has a bigger budget per capita. New York State has the largest budget per capita in the country. Yet all we do is complain. Things are not good. Things aren't working. And when Kathy Hochul, our amazing, awesome, Her Majesty, first of her name, Queen of New York was asked what's the number one problem. She said gun violence. I'm not joking. That, she said, is her number one issue of keeping New York people safe, was gun violence. That's number one. Don't get me wrong. I care about violence, gun and otherwise. I do. Is that the number one issue in New York? No. When it came to her inauguration, what did she say? Do you remember? She used my talking points. She said there are three things that mattered: affordability, opportunity, and safety. All three of those. Where's the affordability and opportunity part? Yeah, that was just talk. But my bigger issue is we're spending all this money. Now, why did I specifically bring up Puerto Ricans? Because one big chunk we're dealing with is immigrants. Now you might go, Larry, are you anti-immigrant? Not at all. I'm not. I love immigrants. I think we should have lots of immigrants. No problem. My problem is illegal immigration without a budget to support them and no way to document them and no way to make things work, to where the only people who are now benefiting from this are big business. And the little guy is getting killed by this. That's my problem. Now, I got to go further. Not only is the little guy being killed, but the budget's getting bigger on top of it. So the little guy is not getting what they need. The little guy is paying more taxes, but the budget keeps going up and we keep suffering. And what is our answer? More money. You can't give more money. We're at the most here in the country. Literally, per capita, number one. You can't give more. Am I crazy? Am I wrong? Tell me. 585-346-3000. Larry Sharpe, Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York. Back with your calls and your chat after the break.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Inside the Taylor Laboratories.
Hey, Tony, what you doing?
A little experiment, Zach. Look what I have under the microscope.
Ugh, what's that?
A sample of indoor air.
How can it be that dirty? Don't AC and furnace filters help?
Only with dust, Zach. But when Taylor installs a whole house APCO air purifier to detox the air, odors, chemicals, mold, bacteria, and viruses are removed.
For clean indoor air.
Yep. Ain't science awesome?
Taylor, 500 help.
With incompetent, devious Washington and Albany leadership and a corrupt corporate media that uses news and social to control and mislead, it's important to preserve freedom of speech and to promote a truth-based society for our families. Try something different in 2023. The WYSL stations can grow your business, professional practice, or organization, so allocate your ad dollars here. Take advantage of a huge audience, entertained and informed by leading conservative thought. Affordable and effective. The WYSL stations, the voice of liberty. Call 346-3000 to advertise.
Sharpe Way Radio on the WYSL stations.
Yes, it is Larry Sharpe here on WYSL Rochester, New York, on Sharpe Way Radio, 585-346-2000. If you like this show, hey, it's every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Check it out. You can listen to it on WYSL, or you can head over to the Sharpe Way on Twitter, on YouTube, all the interwebs. It's all good. Happy to have you aboard today. I was talking about immigrants coming to New York. In this case, specifically, Puerto Ricans, who aren't really immigrants. They are, but not. Right? They are, but not. But how local communities could support what's happening in their local areas. But we walked away from that. And now government tries to support everything in local communities. The problem here that I think most of us are seeing, I hope you're seeing, maybe most aren't seeing, but the problem is who's actually benefiting? Would we actually do this if no one was benefiting? Of course not. Someone's always benefiting. So who's benefiting? I just told you before the break that the average person, particularly someone who is middle class or struggling, they're working poor, that they're suffering. Okay, but who's winning? Let me tell you, big business, without question. That's why we don't fix immigration. When the immigrants come here to America, who hires them? Big business, mostly hospitality. It's a big deal, right? But others too. They want to hire them. And I get it. Look, if I was a big business guy, I'd probably want to hire cheap labor too. I get it. I understand. I'm not mad at the big businesses for wanting to hire cheap labor. And some of you I know listening go, why not? They're bad people. No, that isn't the issue. Big business is apathetic. It just wants to make money. If that happens to hurt little people, okay. If it doesn't hurt little people, okay. It's not trying to hurt little people, just trying to make money. So what happens? It goes along with the system. The government system says, I got you, big business. Keep writing my campaign checks. Keep writing my PACs checks. And I'll keep making sure that the immigrants keep coming and you keep getting cheap labor. And they go, okay, done deal. But what does big business do in any case? They're spending money to get cheap labor. So I'll say what I've been saying forever. Why in the world aren't we instead getting this out of the black market, putting this into the private market, and letting, I'm not joking, letting recruiting companies get people from the border and have them pay regular, just pay. Now, why? Why would that matter, Larry? Because once these people are legal in America, they're going to pay their taxes, as many of them are not. Some are, some aren't, right? They're going to pay their taxes, number one. But number two, we can follow them and we can keep our borders secure at least, right? That's one thing. I like that idea, right? Do that too. But more importantly, now they compete in a regular labor market with everybody else. That's what I want. Currently, they're not. So if you're just some guy or some gal trying to get a job, you're competing with someone who's an undocumented worker. Very often, you're going to lose. I want them competing with you fairly. Make them documented. They compete with you fairly. You're a better worker. You're a smarter worker. You're a more experienced worker. You win. Life is good. Let's do that. But we're not. And we're just throwing more money at this problem. But I'm not even done with this. When we throw more money at this problem, now the worst part is, as government takes over, community can no longer fix it. So I would ask you, do you know in your own world many communities that actually have set up systems like those Puerto Rican families did in the 70s? Now that you will find some, of course you will. But how many? Most aren't. Most are leaning on government. And we found this out during the lockdowns. When the lockdowns came, there were many communities who had no idea how to fix themselves. They had lost the institutional knowledge that a community needs to have to support itself. They wait on government. And when government can't do it, they just struggle. They fall apart. They go into a black market. They start being violent. That's what starts happening in many communities across this country. We saw it in New York. We're still seeing it. The backlash is still here from that. The pain from those times is still here. All right. Let me move even further forward here. When we have migrant issues, most of the time, these people are going to be laborers. Most of the time. Not always, but most of the time laborers. Why does that matter? Because laborers get injured. That's how it works. If you're a laborer, the odds of you getting injured are far higher than if you're an office worker. Just the odds. A lot more people by percentage are going to be injured if you're a laborer. How it works. Okay, great. So now you got injured. Where are you going to go? You're not documented. Emergency room. Who's paying for that? We are. The government is. But more importantly than that, you are in a more important way. What happens if you really need an emergency room? You're having a heart attack or chest pains, or someone you love is ODing. Something like that's happening to you, and you want to go to the emergency room. Well, you now got to wait forever. Why? Because someone who just had a regular injury has to be there because they have no other option. This is hurting us. Fixing this issue is a problem. And how do we know this? Because right now, New York City, where I live, is fighting New York State on who's going to pay for the migrants. If you've been watching this, and I know most of you haven't been, as you probably shouldn't be, but I am. We're now fighting on what percentage the city will pay versus the state will pay for the migrant issue in New York City, across the country, across the state, but heavily in New York City, as most of you have seen. Now, again, am I against migrants? No. I hope they come. Good. No worries. But compete fairly with everybody else, and let's have a plan to support them that doesn't just mean more taxes. We've done none of that. We just go, come on in, migrants. Well, can we do the other two things also? Clearly not. We just let them in. This is the wrong way of doing this. But as we do that, we say, who's going to pay? And it was, if I remember right, the rule was 1/3 was going to be New York City and 2/3 was going to be New York State. Now they're fighting 50-50 or something like that.
Jacob, Oklahoma.
The problem is, no matter what, the state pays. No matter what, we all pay. And we're fighting over nickels and dimes when we have a $220 billion budget that's going up. And more importantly, native-born New Yorkers, over 500,000 have left in the past 2 years. Over 500,000. So our budget's gone up, our population has gone down by 500,000, and we spend the most per capita in the country. This is a recipe for failure. Let me grab a call if I could. I'm going to grab Jacob from Oklahoma. Oh my God, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Larry. How are you?
What's going on?
Not much. Just listening in for a moment, and I had a question.
Okay.
Because you were talking about waiting on government just a few minutes ago.
Yep.
And then you were talking about the medical industry.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there's a plant called kratom that a lot of people, due to the chronic nature of illnesses and government failure for correct legislation and regulation of things to actually help with chronic illness and chronic pain, a lot of us use kratom. Do you know about it? And do you know about how the Fed is actually trying to get it scheduled as a narcotic?
Well, several things. Number one, you probably know, Jacob, if you listened to the show before, I'm a libertarian. I wear it on my sleeve.
Oh, yeah.
So without question, you know I'm not going to be about government regulating any substance like that at all. Of course not, right? There's no, one of the biggest, I guess, not embarrassments, I guess, disappointments of both Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Donald Trump too, but he didn't talk about it as much, is not taking cannabis off Schedule 1, right? That's the number one. I mean, Trump didn't really talk about it much. So he should have done it too, but he didn't talk about it that much. Barack Obama talked about it, and so did Biden, and they blew it off. And now you have a substance like kratom, and people are like, well, let's regulate that. No to all of that. Let's instead just do one important thing: be transparent and make sure only adults can use it. If you do those two things, I don't have a problem. I need to make sure that everything is transparent and only adults use it. We do that, I'm fine. Did I answer your question, Jacob, where I am?
Yes.
And that's the
Yes,
key.
you did.
If you want to use it, go ahead, as long as you're an adult and as long as everything is transparent. And something else, while this is in the black market, as I'm probably preaching to the choir here, Jacob, but while things are not transparent, now you are making sure that people are afraid, If it's in the black market, you don't know what's in it. You're making sure people are going to OD or make a mistake or take too much or take too little or whatever the case may be. Transparency in the regular market by adults, and you will see whatever is the right answer for you, you should take it. That's my answer, Jacob.
100%.
There we go. Thanks for calling, brother.
Call, Larry.
All righty.
Bye.
So, yeah, I mean, this is with most things, right? Transparency is critical. Adults, that's the critical thing you will hear me say all the time is we must be consenting adults. If you are consenting an adult, you do you. Just don't hurt others. I don't think that's too crazy at all. You tell me. 585-346-3000. Larry Sharpe, Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York. Back with your calls and your chat after the break.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182.
Okay, after the break, we're going to have Keith from Rochester.
Simple Tech Innovations.
You're welcome.
Oh, those injury attorney ads.
Hurt on your run? Call 11111.
It can be strangely amusing watching that injury attorney interviewing a tractor trailer. But while fun is fun, there's nothing amusing about getting your life back together after a personal injury or a motorcycle accident, or when you need defense for a DWI charge. Christopher Johnson takes your case seriously, and you'll feel like you're his only client because when you meet with him, your case gets 100% of his attention. So instead of cute singing jingles and magic phone numbers,
Hurt opening wine? Call 99999.
write this number down and keep it with you. 585-415-3803. 415-3803. After all, Christopher Johnson knows you're smarter than a mud flap. Get individual attention and integrity, experience, and expertise. Put the power of one on your legal team. 415-3803. Stay safe, be healthy, drive sober. Christopher Johnson Attorney, personal injury, car or motorcycle accidents, DWI Defense.
A great springtime is in store with blue skies, green grass, and your new ride from Victor Chevrolet. Check out these great lease specials. Get the all-weather capability of a 2023 Chevy Silverado LT Crew Cab for just $359 a month for 36 months. Must-have lease and household. Residual $37,061. MSRP $52,945. 10,000 miles per year. A 2023 Chevy Equinox LS is only $179 a month for 27 months. Must-have lease and household. Residual $19,552. MSRP $30,080. 10,000 miles per year. A 2023 Chevy Trailblazer LT is $179 a month for 27 months. Must have lease and household. Residual $17,660. MSRP $25,595. 10,000 miles per year. These deals require $2,500 down. First payment and DMV fees due at closing. Get more details at dealer. And don't forget, Victor Chevrolet has an unbeatable pre-owned selection. Whether you drive a Chevy or not, trust your vehicle to our Chevy Certified Service Department. Come see how easy it is to do business with us. Find new roads at Victor Chevrolet, Route 96 in Victor. Visit VictorChevrolet.com.
Mint green, cerulean blue, pure white to say, I do. Lemonade, punch pink, hot candy too. Candy apple red, cause I blush that hue. Purple and red don't go much together, but black stallion is forever. We have every color in lingerie, it's true. Friday and Saturday lingerie, every day at Show World.
Show World, 3 locations.
Flower City Collision in Henrietta is your hometown body shop, trusted by numerous corporate fleets, properly insured and registered in New York. Flower City Collision specializes in working with insurance companies on your behalf. Having built a culture where the respect the customer and their employees as well, Flower City Collision has assembled the best collision team in the Rochester area. If you need repair, reach out to Zach at Flower City Collision in Henrietta, and he will work with your national insurance company to ensure you get the repair you need done right.
A famous attorney said, when bad things happen, bad laws appear and are passed immediately. Lawmakers, we are watching. 30,000 gun laws are more than enough. Learn more, join Scope. Visit MonroeCountyScope.com.
Handing a kid a perfectly made ice cream cone is probably the favorite part of my job. Eyes get wider, and a smile takes over their entire face. I'm Sam from Tom Walls Canandaigua, and I want to serve you an ice cream cone that makes you smile.
Tom Walls. Sharpe Way Radio on the WYSL stations.
Yes, Larry Sharpe here, Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York, 585-346-3000. Been talking about immigration, budgets, trying to fix things, New York City versus New York State, all the things that are driving us crazy on how we have to spend so much money, yet people keep leaving. People keep leaving our state. Our budget keeps getting bigger. Our communities keep losing their ability to fix themselves at all. And we look at it now almost like we're crazy if we want to have our own institutions, our own communities help themselves. In fact, we make it illegal to help themselves. The piece I'll bring up that is more important of that Puerto Rican story I told earlier is that so many of those Puerto Rican family members went out on their own to be successful in their own world, whether they went to college or to school or trade school or started businesses. It was a big deal. And many immigrants, I brought up the Puerto Rican community because I grew up in that area, but you can see that many other communities, particularly immigrant communities who've come in to fix things. We can make this work, not the way we're doing it now. Not when we're focusing on things that don't matter. Not when all we think is the right answer is more money while our population dwindles and we still don't get what we want. I mean, to be clear, not only are we not getting what we want, but the wealthy are getting this money even more. And I know Democrats are going to complain and go, oh, this is all about, wealth redistribution. And that's what Republicans are doing, not Democrats. Well, I would ask you, when Kathy Hochul decides to give $5 billion in tenant relief, where is that $5 billion going? To landlords. Yes, that's what's happening. Yes. When she gives $2 more billion additional dollars to schools, where is that going? Administrators' pockets and crony capitalism. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts. Let me grab a call if I could. This is Keith from Rochester. Keith, how are you, sir?
What you're talking about can be summed up in the funny phrase, not even the dead want to live in a hellhole like North Korea. The point of that is, the point of that, you've got to tell us how the government is going to do for the illegals. What good is it for Biden to allow in 5 million illegals, don't want to hear the word immigrant, illegals in just 2 years, all of you, my fellow Americans, 5 million illegals coming in under Biden's watch when they can't be handled. You mentioned correctly, I know of, in the news, several hospitals in true southern Arizona that are going broke by $20 to $30 million each because they're having to take care of the health problems of the illegals, and they are not being reimbursed by the Biden administration. So my concern, as always, for you, Mr. Sharpe, even though you're libertarian, I still hear in the last half hour you're putting too much emphasis on what the government can do or should do, but is not doing realistically. Where is Biden reimbursing those hospitals in southern Arizona? They're pouring in over the border with their health problems. You talk about the wait times for American citizens. If you're hurting and illegals ahead of you, I mean, you're going to hate the illegal. Why should my American family suffer because they're here illegally and getting help in the hospital that we rely on in this American community is going under because Biden wants them here, but the Biden federal government is not reimbursing these hospitals. So all of you
let me
together
touch a couple of those, Keith. As always, Keith, you throw a lot at me, and I'm fine. I'm happy you do it. Let me try to grab a couple of them if I can. The first piece is you bring up a very valid point, which I hadn't even brought up and I hadn't even thought of. So I want to give you kudos for this. As we see people who are in front of us in line and we go, they're not Americans. You're right. This system is making us hate them when we shouldn't hate them. And I want to be clear about this. Do I want a bunch of undocumented or illegal people coming into our country? I don't, but I don't blame them. Keith, if it was me and you in those countries, we'd be coming here too. So it's not their fault. It's our fault for letting them in. It's not their fault for wanting to come here. So we shouldn't be mad at them. We should be mad at our government for allowing them in the way they're doing it. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm just kind of reinforcing what you're saying. But now it's also making us angry at them. And we shouldn't be. All I'm saying, if it was me, I'd be coming over here too. And so would you, Keith. So good point. Thank you for that. Let me move to the next point, though. It doesn't, while I agree with you, you have to somehow support these hospitals. Biden writing more checks to the hospitals isn't the right answer. Is it probably the fair thing to do now since Biden made the problem? Yes, it probably is the right thing to do now. I agree. But that's a Band-Aid, right? Because now we're going to keep doing it. And at one point, Uncle Joe has to stop writing checks. I don't know when that point is, but at one point it's going to happen. So I get your fairness idea that he should do it, but that's just a Band-Aid. We have to change this, right? I don't want these hospitals overfilled and overflowing with people that they can't handle, and then they're going broke, and then they can't fix, and then they're going to raise their prices for everybody else. This is lose, lose, lose. Which, so you're asking me, Larry, what am I saying about these, about the government, what it could and couldn't do? The government cannot close the border as well as it would like. It is impossible. Can't be done. The government cannot go and get the at least 10 million undocumented workers here in New York, and I'm sorry, in the country. At least 10 million, maybe 12 or 14. I mean, we don't actually know. So I know that the low end is 10 million. It might be as high as 14, 15 million. We don't know. It's a whole lot. We physically can't do it. It is impossible. How do we do it? The thing I've been saying for literally 6 years, we have to allow, which I brought up earlier in this show, we have to allow the private sector to take over immigration as far as recruiting goes. Let the immigrants coming in compete fairly with every other American here for those jobs. Let them compete. And what we'll find is there are certain jobs Americans don't want to do. Okay, great. Immigrants will do it. Wonderful. Now I'm not stealing any American's job. But if there are jobs that Americans want to do, they will compete with the immigrants fairly as anybody else will. Immigrants can unionize if they want to, just like Americans unionize. They can compete union versus union. That is the way I want that to actually work. Now, if we do that, the only people who be crossing the border illegally will be bad guys, which means now our actual border patrol right now, which is completely overwhelmed and is basically becoming daycare center for adults, they can actually go after bad guys. No extra taxes for me or you, Keith. The same number of people, the same everything, but now just going after bad guys. Guess what? They can clean up the border because they're not being babysitters anymore. Now the people who just want to work go through the private sector Ellis Islands and compete like anybody else for jobs. That is what the government should be doing. It should be actually getting rid of this idea of it can control the border and instead say, let them go through the private sector.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovation.
Larry, you there? Yeah, we lost you, so I sent it to break.
Cold in your home? Pick up the phone and call Wise Home Energy at 270-5836. Don't be cold in your home. Pick up the phone, call 270-5836. Wise Home Energy has helped thousands of people get millions in grants and rebates to make their homes much warmer. So don't be cold in your home. Pick up the phone, call Wise Home Energy at 270-5836 today.
Wise Home Energy is a participating contractor in the Home Performance with Energy Star program.
With incompetent, devious Washington and Albany leadership and a corrupt...
Okay, so we still have Keith on the line if you want to let Keith respond. Yep, and then, and then after Keith, we got Roger from Nassau County.
So allocate your ad.
Okay, great.
Take advantage of a huge audience.
Coming back after this spot.
Leading conservative thought. Affordable and effective. The WYSL station's the voice of liberty. Call 346-3000 to advertise.
Sharpe Way Radio on the WYSL stations.
Yes, Larry Sharpe back here. I apologize for that little blip that we had. I don't know what it was. Maybe Governor Hochul didn't like what I was saying and she had her people cut the wires or something. But we are back, so I apologize for that. Keith, do I still have you here on WYSL Rochester, New York?
Yes, sir, you do. Can I say something before you let me go?
Yes, please, go ahead. I'm sorry I cut off. I hope I answered some of your questions at least.
Yes, but I would ask all Americans, our true enemies, there's no one breaking in. Like I mentioned, no one's trying to break into China, Russia, Iran, or, of course, North Korea to find sanctuary here. People, even if they don't like America, know we are that proverbial land of opportunity. That is why legal immigration is so good. So I would ask everyone to be objective. Here goes. No matter what anyone thinks of Trump, was it so bad really under his way? In the last 2 years, like it or not on the part of the Dems, 5 million illegals have come in under Biden. How is the government set up to help them when, of course, they are not? I would ask Biden squarely, you in an immoral manner allow these people to come in hoping for a better way of life, but you have no answer in so far as to absorb them and get them assimilated. That's what we need, Mr. Sharpe, that word of assimilation. We come from all lands in the world. We assimilate e pluribus unum, out of many come one, the American people. The illegals are not being assimilated. They are certainly not being looked upon as fellow citizens. In closing, we need legal immigration. People say speed up the process. Even I understand that. Let's get them in here faster legally. But we need them to assimilate, to become a part of the American family, the American people. From many lands, we become just one, the American people. That's not happening now. And Biden is a criminal, and he should be tried for treason for bringing in these illegals who will never assimilate, and they will be welfare.
Hold on. Let me. Thank you, Keith, for your call. I appreciate it. I do. I want to bring up something though here with this. One, generally speaking, when it comes to us compared, meaning the United States compared to the rest of the world, we are very good at assimilating immigrants. We are we are the best at it. Now, we're not perfect, to be forward. We have problems. We're not perfect. But relative to every single country on the planet, we are the best at it. Have we been great at it recently? No, you're right. We haven't. And one of the reasons why is, I'll go back to my story about the Puerto Rican community. They all learned English. They all went to school. And when I was in school, if you didn't speak English as your first language, and many of the kids in my school didn't, right? I grew up in the Bronx in the 70s. There was a separate class that they would go to once a day, which was basically English class. And the rest, they spent their time learning here in English. And somehow the kids all learned to speak English. And most of them were bilingual within, 6 months to a year. Happens all the time. It isn't just, of course, I'm using Puerto Ricans because that's what I know. I was there. But this is common in many immigrant communities. So I think assimilation is the key. I would absolutely agree. And the easier we can make it to legally get immigrants here, to have them compete fairly against Americans for jobs that Americans want, I think the better off we're going to be.
Roger.
So yes. Let me grab the call if I can. I'm going to grab Roger from Nassau County. Roger, how are you?
Good. So I want to say 3 things. I wrote it down because
Okay.
I know you got limited time. I'm going to try to take last night's show, which I love, local and state versus national, and combine it with this show.
Okay, hold on one second.
Bang.
For those of
Go
you
ahead.
who don't know, I did a show last night on Sharpe Way, the Sharpe Club, talking about the differences between local and national government, which is more important and such. So go ahead, Roger, keep going.
Banks are given a charter by the federal government to print money. They take in deposits, mark them up, and issue them out as lines of credit. And when it's paid back, they make money on the interest. Okay?
Yep.
Now, of course, with a public bank, the deposits are taxes, and when it's paid back after issuing our lines of credit to finance jobs and infrastructure projects, those income taxes is what's used to pay back the principal, while the low interest goes toward building a surplus. Now, the New York Public Banking Act, it is a permission slip to municipalities to charter their own public banks so that they can build their own surpluses and the money stays in the community. In order to keep it honest, the public must have decision-making powers. So it's all about how you structure it, right? So you want to structure it in a way where you have people from local communities and other like public interest groups like good governance groups and environmental sustainability and so on and so forth, immigrant people, whatever the case is.
But hold on. The most important thing of what you're saying, Roger, is these groups who are being watchdogs are local community groups, not government agencies, correct?
Right. So see, right. And that's exactly what I was getting at. They have to be included in the decision-making process where they would actually have representatives from local communities sitting on the board of directors with those who have a background in financing, running community bank or credit union, or running a public bank.
Or even just being entrepreneurs.
Huh?
Even
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
But that's
just understanding business.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Worker cooperatives, all that stuff, right? But it's important that those who represent the public interest outnumber the people who have a background in financing and running community banks, running credit unions, whatever the case is. With the public, they will know exactly where. So they would know exactly where that money needs to go. Because you're talking about, hey, we're throwing money at the problem and nothing's getting solved. Yeah, that's because the people who need the help are not in on the decision making of, no, why are you sending the money over there? The money needs to come over here. You see what I'm saying? Oh,
I agree completely. Look, I'm a fan of more credit unions, localized banks, public banks, everything that isn't just federal government saying, here's money going to the cronies that write checks to my PACs or that write checks to my campaigns or help out my cronies so that I can become a millionaire, even though my salary is $100,000 a year. I become a multimillionaire in 3 years. So yes, I'm on board with all of those things. I think you're correct. I think local does matter. And look, is it going to be perfect? Roger, no. Local people are going to screw up. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to spend the money poorly. That is going to happen also. But if it happens at a local community, it doesn't crush the entire state or the entire country. One community took a smack. Other communities go, don't do that. That's a mistake. And they learn. But how we do it now is the federal government decides everything and we all pay. All of us suffer. The state suffers, but the wealthy keep winning. Because as we keep bailing people out, the people we're bailing out, it looks like from the outside, oh, we're bailing out the people who are poor. In reality, we're just transferring wealth to the wealthy.
Mm-hmm. So the second thing I was going to say is, you know who illegal immigration hurts the most?
Who?
The Black community. Those low-level jobs is what we used to do, but we stopped doing them because we know our rights as workers. And we were like, no, you're not going to do this to us. So we kind of like did kind of like a an organic boycott, so to speak. Not like, hey, we're standing outside boycott, striking, or whatever the case is. It was just like, no, I'm not taking that because what you're doing, you're taking advantage of us, so I'm not going to take those jobs. It's kind of like what you see Generation Z is doing now, where they're not taking jobs because they know their worth. So businesses said,
well, that was my point earlier, right?
Yeah.
Immigrants
Right, I'm
doing
piggybacking
jobs,
on.
but I want to make sure that immigrants are doing jobs that Americans don't want to do, right? They should compete fairly for the jobs they want. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So I'm pretty much, I guess, confirming. So businesses said, fine, we'll hire these people over here whose legal status is kind of shaky, and we know that since they're not citizens, they will be less likely to speak out about their terrible
100%.
working conditions. Yes, labor laws might protect them also, but are they really going to speak out? As a result,
to your point, though, Roger, since they're here illegally, they're undocumented, they don't know their laws very well, and no one's going to tell them because their employers want to keep them basically enslaved. So even if in certain local communities, like New York City is actually pretty good when it comes to supporting people like that, they wouldn't tell them anyway. But what if you're not in a place like New York City? Well, you actually don't have any protections because you're undocumented. So there's no protections. I think your point's valid in two ways. One, not every place are they protected. And the places where they are protected, who's going to tell them? Nobody.
So as a result, both the black community and the immigrant community gets hurt by big business, right? So
yes.
Now the third thing, also, it's not a good look when you're putting immigrants that Florida and Texas put on a bus and drove up here and put them in luxury hotels and giving them health care and all different types of accommodations. But native New Yorkers, who most of them are black, don't get the same thing forwarded
100%.
them to us. And we're still out.
I'm running short on time, Roger, but I want to read everything. This is kind of what Keith was saying too. So now what happens? So now I'm poor and minority in the city, and we always think of immigrants, not affecting that group.
Hey, he's gone.
Like immigrants are the same, but they're not. Immigrants and native-born Americans are different in many ways. So now the native-born Black American in New York City is going, where's my luxury hotel? Where's my health care? And now to Keith's point, now we're starting to hate these immigrants, and we shouldn't hate them. We should hate the system that allowed them to come in the way they did, right? I don't want to blame the immigrant. Again, I would probably do it too if I was them. And if you're listening, you would do it too if you could. I get why they're doing it. It's our fault for sending them the way we're sending them. I think that's absolutely true. Roger, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. So what am I bringing up? I know I kind of went down the immigration road a lot today, but that really wasn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue actually was the budget. The biggest issue is where we're spending our money to solve our problems. And we're doing a bad job of it. Immigration just screams at us because we see it all the time. Immigration screams at us because it's on TV all the time. It's on the internet all the time. And to your point, whether you're from a more rural or Western New York like Keith is, or more downstate like Roger is, or you live in a city like I do, no matter what, you see it. You see what's happening. You see how it's working. You see that we are spending more and more money, yet more people are leaving our state. New York is in trouble. And our answers are always the same. More money, more money, more money. That's not the answer. We need structural change, whether it is supporting local businesses and local people like Roger's talking about, or whether it's allowing the private sector to take care of immigration so that we can have more vibrant legal immigration like he's talking about. They're both right. They're both right. Guys, I'm sorry I couldn't get to some of your chats. Some of you have great chats. If you have a second, please go on YouTube. Check out the chat. I will try to follow them up with all you guys later on today. Larry Sharpe, Sharpe Way Radio, WYSL, Rochester, New York. Thank you so much for giving me a chunk of your afternoon.